you're doing all the folds in this cloak, and you want, you know, the tops of the peaks to be highlighted and then a layer into the shadows of the recesses. Am I getting all that right? Okay. My guess is you wouldn't approach it in the same way of just one pass and get a gradient for each fold. You would hit you'd base it out, you'd hit all the highlights at once, you'd hit all the shadows at once, and then you would come in with a mid-tone and hit all the transitions between the two at once, and then you'd come in and glaze to smooth out the transitions. Am I tracking any of that right?
That's a way of doing it, for sure. And like I said, with the layering, there's not really like one right way to do it darker or do it lighter. You can start really, really dark and move it lighter. You can start really, really light, move it darker. You can start in the middle and go either way. Usually, like if I was to approach this, really I would start with a really solid base coat of red like this, and I would just progressively push my shadows into where I would decide that the shadows would be. And usually after that, like if there's significant fixing that needs to be done with the transitions, I'll fix it. And then after that, if I want it to be even more smooth, I'll glaze it a little bit.
Okay.
Does it make sense?
All that before you would then mess with highlights, or because in that case you'd be layering from a shadow in the recess through a mid-tone into a highlight. Am I right?
So here's the thing: is that red has a very high natural bright color, so you really don't have to add much to it to really get it to be a highlight. Like if you add white to it, it turns pink. If you add yellow to it, it turns orange. And it's very hard once you shift it outside of itself being red to get it back to feeling like true red. And so again, like what I said earlier, like the old masters, like I don't know if you've ever heard of Caravaggio, and a lot of the Italian masters in the Renaissance period, this is how they would paint red. They wouldn't add any white or any yellow to it to get it to
So for red in particular, it's red to darker, not red and lighting. No, you're not highlighting red, you're darkening from red.
Exactly. And a lot of times they would do it with, and I know we're kind of getting off topic here, but a lot of times, like if they wanted to create like a silk, for instance, they would literally just get pure white, and they would just do this. I'm trying to be too fast, and so this has yellow in it. And just literally grab white and just go. And so like if you hold it at a distance, it looks like a reflection, right? And when it's in an even bigger format, it just looks like it's shiny, right? So a lot of it's confidence and a lot of it's technique.
But a lot of those paintings, I mean, they're sort of dark, you know, is that because they're putting black in every paint then? Is that why they always look so dark?
Yes and no. Like, I mean, there's a lot more going on than just adding black. With red, they definitely would. With a lot of other colors, they would add like complementary tones to get it darker instead of pure black.
Okay.
Quick question about the glaze, actually. At what consistency do you consider it a glaze?
So,
how do you know
it's unique to each color. Sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once. It's unique to each color. So, colors have tinting strength, essentially. Yellow is the weakest color, blue is the strongest color. And so like, it's almost on a scale of like 1 to 10. Like you can add 1 part water to 1 part yellow and glaze with it. Whereas with blue, like you can add 10 parts water to 10 parts blue and glaze with it, and it's gonna tint in an equivalent amount. Orange is next in its line of like strength, then red. Green is kind of like a weird like bastard color because it has red or yellow and blue. If it has more yellow, it's gonna be very weak. If it has more blue, it's gonna be very strong. Purple it tints, you know, also generally very strong, and then blue, of course, has the most strength.
So it's by preference, and you just have to play with it.
Yeah, you really have to. Each color is going to demand a different level of thinness. The most important thing that you can do is test it on your. Like I paint all over my hand all the time. If you don't like doing that, you know, and I would recommend just getting like a flip pad of paper. Regular paper is the best for doing this. Paper towels, not so great for testing your opacity. Some people are like, oh, I can tell the way that it bleeds in the paper, into the paper. Don't do that.
So transparency is what you're after.
Well, translucency. You want just enough so that you're obscuring the layering.
Less opacity.
So,
okay.
you see how transparent this is,
Mhm.
and when I glaze it over this blue, you see how it shifts green. And when I do the same here,
Wow.
it'll probably I'll probably need to add a little bit more because this is just